I'm Scott Daniels, and I'm the VP of Enterprise Sales. I'm here today to talk about the hospitality industry and the way technology, particularly in the wireless, is seen.
Mark Meuleman, I head up sales and marketing. Glad to be here today.
Appreciate that, Mark. I really want to explain to the viewers the state of the industry. It's really changed a lot over the last 2 years. Could you kind of give the viewers an overview of that?
Yeah, I mean, really the change happened just prior to COVID, where the carriers, honestly, they spent so many billions of dollars buying spectrum and deploying their 5G networks, reducing pretty significantly their budget for anything to do with in-building. There's one carrier I can think of in particular that is doing less than 30 total in-building installs, entire country. And we think about in-building from our space, office, hospitality, and those related things. There's only a couple being done in the entire country. So
when the carriers start pulling back in the hospitality industry, really what that means is that the hotels that had before had these services, and we're talking some of the biggest hotels, some of the nicest hotels, are now getting funding. And I know, and you probably attest to this, that in 2023 we saw that there was not a lot of funding going forward. But now in 2024 and 2025, we're seeing that hotels that even have a DAS, those being pulled out. And we find a lot of hotels that are now really struggling to deal with what that means. And so what we're seeing, some hotels even getting notices that in 2 and 3 months, they'll be out of service, trying to scramble. Can you kind of talk about what you've seen?
what's possible for in-building for hospitality? If I go from the smallest to the biggest, in the smallest space you have kind of nano and pico cells. Nano and pico cells, think about single point solution for a single specific reason. There's a sensor in-building in some crazy little spot that you just need to make sure it has some sort of cellular connectivity. Perfect solution for a nano pico cell. It really can't handle capacity. It's great for that. It's single carrier. If you go up a notch from there, you're looking at repeaters. Repeaters absolutely have a fantastic use in the scenario where, first of all, you have a good outside coverage coming inside, available across the carriers, and a relatively small space, a controlled space. Maybe it's a restaurant, maybe it's a specific back room area where you're just looking for 10, 20,000 square feet is kind of an ideal use case. And then I'm going to go to the total other end of the spectrum, and that's the DAS, the distributed antenna systems. That fantastic for the densest environments. That when I say dense, I'm talking about where people are crammed together in very tight spaces. So airport terminals, train terminals, stadiums. People have tried to install DAS down into the hospitality space, into 600, 500, 400, 300,000 square foot buildings, and tried to make the economics work for really a system that's designed for this massive density.
Right.
And made it work into this space. And honestly, it just has not worked. And because of that, the hospitality industries relied on the carriers to pay for that. They, by and large, almost none of them were paid for by the hospitality owners themselves. They were funded, asked for and funded by the carriers to work there. And so if you go back back in this conversation, you can see how they've just said, not only am I not funding it moving forward, if the contract's ending, I'm actually pulling out. So suddenly there's this change of what the heck am I going to do? And honestly, that's where our technology comes in as a replacement for this middle ground.
A lot of times in our industry, people have been trying to figure out how to solve that coverage issue, but try to keep it at a price point they can really work with. Our company brought something to the industry that's really unique. We brought actually what we call a neutral host small cell. And we actually, unlike a DAS where it's a larger system, they bring it, they install it, there's a lot of cost to it, it takes a full room. What we do is we actually bring the carriers with us. Could you maybe take a minute or two, kind of talk about kind of what is our value prop and kind of where does our cost, our pricing fall into that?
This hospitality space, really, I guess the most fundamentally, we come in roughly the half the price of what a DAS is. It opens up the door when we talk to the hospitality owners. We brought it into a price point per square foot where that does tally up, and I can see myself budgeting for that and making that happen. So that's probably the most fundamental thing. The next thing I would say, you've mentioned it, security. We've designed this system so that it is applicable and usable by anybody across the spectrum. The other point I would say is we bring all the carriers. The DAS systems in particular were struggled all the time because, there's some averages out there. You don't want to get into too specifics, but almost every DAS system out there is a single carrier, one.
Right.
Then they hope for the best and they try to get to two, maybe. I think there's something like 10 to 15% of all DAS systems actually get to two carriers. Less than 5% of DAS systems out there actually have all three. What we do is we have a single contract with each of the carriers. We go to the carriers with a new building, and it is borderline rubber stamp saying that we show the design, they say, yep, looks good. Between 2 days and 3 weeks, we have the carrier signed up saying, yep, you're good to go. Network approved, you guys are done.
Right.
And then we are able, on top of that, so then if you take that and couple it with, we can go from contract to deployed, carriers in place in 90 days or less.
That's amazing.